Hi again, everyone, and welcome back to another very special episode of Once Upon a Turnbuckle. After I've had a bit of a summer break, I hope everyone's had a great summer. Mine, as a parent, was filled with the usual joys of trying to entertain two kids who were on the way to secondary school. So it wasn't particularly fun, but I've been really looking forward to getting back to this, especially with the guest I've got to bring you today. There's been a bit of a common theme in my house over the last couple of days because I've been walking around with one item fixed to my hand, if I can get this right, this baby right here. And I'm so happy that I welcome everyone to this show where I will get to talk to the man himself behind the awesome Rampage World Wrestling Federation Invasion of the British Isles 89 to 93. Lee Herbert, welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you so much for that wonderful intro. I think we could probably just wrap it up there.
Yeah,
I
should we
think it's
leave it
peak.
there? Yeah.
It's all downhill there. Thank you so much. It's very
Oh,
kind.
no worries, no worries. And
Thank you for inviting
firstly,
me on.
wait, anytime. As soon as this is the beauty, I've said this before, of social media, and the groups that I'm now in, since I got onto this collecting, I got back into wrestling collecting probably about 6 months ago, and I've got into these Facebook groups, and I probably would have seen your book anyway. It would have crossed my path at some point, but I'm in a particular group where it was just landed in there, and I tell you what, the cover alone was enough to capture me. We'll talk about everything that's in here or what I've read of it anyway. But the cover alone just grabs you. Firstly, it looks absolutely fantastic, and this was all of us at that age. I'm pretty sure. So you immediately, I think we'll get into the detail, but I think from the off, it just gives you a flavour that this book is made for a certain generation of wrestling fans, and you have landed it very well with me. Congratulations, first of all, on the release of the book. Um,
Thank you. Yeah,
it's
it's a lot of work. So yeah, it's
I
nice
bet,
nice that people can read it finally.
yeah, it's only just come out. I think in the last sort of what week or so,
Yeah,
if that.
yeah. So by chance, it just kind of lined up on the anniversary of SummerSlam '92. But
As
it wasn't planned that way really.
eh,
But it just kind of fell nicely.
you
So
could have fooled me
a
with that
good
one.
day for it.
You could have fooled me with that one. That's yeah, it is such an incredible book. You know, I mentioned to you just before we started recording that I received mine on Friday. We're recording this on Monday, and I have barely put it down. It is such an incredible read. And I think I need to say as well, it's the book I think we all of our generation needed, but we never knew we needed, if you know what I mean. You know, because you just
Yeah.
transport us back to the best time. So
Yeah. I mean, it's funny you say that we never knew we needed because that's kind of how it came about, to be honest, because
cool.
I assumed that it had been done.
Okay,
Um,
right.
I can't remember what it was that triggered it. I'd obviously read something or I'd watched something, and I was just thinking to myself, oh, I'd like to read the book because obviously SummerSlam '92 has been written about and talked about
Yeah.
in various things. But the Rampage tours and all the other stuff that led to it hadn't been as much. And I thought, oh, I'd really like to read that story. And I
Mm,
tried to buy it online. I was looking online for this book, assuming that it must exist.
right.
And I couldn't find one. And that's what led me to do it. It was the fact that I was looking for this exact book. So really it's written for me. Because
That's
I wanted
incredible.
to, and during the course of my
And,
research, a lot of, this wasn't
and
all stuff that I knew. It was a lot of this stuff, it's it was kind of feeding my own curiosity because I wanted to know all the dates they
mm,
did and where they went and who came over and what
yeah.
happened. Because I missed a lot of it because without the internet, you didn't know everything that was going on at the time. So yeah,
Uh,
really, it was number one. It was written for myself because I wanted to know a lot of this stuff, and so
I
that's kind
love
of
that.
how it came about, to be honest.
I love that. I was going to start there actually, because usually with my shows, when I've got a guest on, I start in a similar kind of way. I always say, okay, your relationship with wrestling, where did it start? But with you, I really wanted to delve into where did the idea come from for this, and you've just answered that,
Great
which is
minds.
perfect. Because it's great. Because sometimes I speak to writers and they're like, yeah, I was approached with for the, I was approached by someone with this idea, and I thought it was really good. I think it's great when it's something that it appealed to you as well personally, first and foremost, because it becomes a real labor of love. And
Yeah.
the amount of research that must have gone into this, I hate to think how many hours you spent compiling what is in
Yeah.
here. Um, Before we go too much further, for those who may not be familiar with it so far, who may not have picked it up and read it yet, just give us a bit of a summary, if you can, on what the book focuses on. What is in there?
Yeah, so I think primarily the first thing to point out would be that it's written from a British perspective, first of all. All the WWE documentaries, and there's lots of fantastic ones, and they're all over. Um, that Vault channel is amazing now on
Yeah.
YouTube, and then they've got the stuff that Peacock made and A&E and all this great content about the history of WWE, WWF.
Mm,
But not a lot really from a British perspective, which it makes sense. It's an American product, but because it has been so big over here, um, I think it's possibly a little bit of an oversight in a way because it
yeah.
has been such a big part of the culture. So yeah, so the book it's written from a British perspective, and it really just explores how WWF came to be such a cultural phenomenon here in the early 90s. So there's a little bit of background in there about the national expansion in the US and British wrestling because that's kind
Mhm.
of key to the story as well,
Yeah.
really, why there was such a gap in the market for pro wrestling to come back here, really, which
Mm,
Vince McMahon took advantage of. And then it's really just going through not just the tours and all the shows that led up to SummerSlam 92, the Albert Hall, all that kind of stuff, but all the different elements of the fan culture as well. Sticker collecting was a
mm.
huge thing here. People are still buying the Merlin sticker albums now in some of these Facebook groups you're talking about, which is quite, there we go, there we go.
As if on
So,
cue.
these things that, like that isn't just a sticker album, that is a gateway back to a special time. And it's going back and looking at a lot of this stuff. And I managed to speak to a couple of the guys that founded Merlin. Silver Vision as well as another one, home
Mm,
video. So, rather than just kind of going through all the video releases and listing what they were and what was on them, I managed to speak to Ian Allen, who was the company founder, and get his backstory, how he got involved, buying the rights from Coliseum in America and all that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, even WWF Magazine, which was, of course, an American product.
mm,
Um, but what I've done is research the story as to how it managed to land on newsagent shelves here.
mhm.
So I spoke to Tom Emmanuel, who was the editor-in-chief of the magazine, who happened to be British actually, but he wound up in New York.
That was quite cool. Yeah.
Um, and he managed to unbelieve, like I can't believe some of these people remembered these things, but he remembered the meeting where he sold it to a UK distributor and all this kind of stuff. So
Mm,
it's getting into the nerdy detail really of all these things that led to this explosion.
mm,
Because there's a lot of interesting stories out there with all these little companies that were taking a chance on this new product that had just landed on Sky TV, which was still only a fraction of the population had access to at the time.
mm.
So it was a gamble for a lot of these people to start launching businesses on the back of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's just running through, I say, year by year, a bit about what was going on generally in the company at the time, but then how that related to what was going on over here, um, and that's quite interesting as well because business was on a huge downturn in the States during these years, whereas here it was, you flicked on BBC One and Roddy Piper was on Jim will Fix It. It
Yeah.
was just, um, it was mainstream here just as it was
Mm.
really tanking in the US really at the time. So yeah, it's so really, I mean that was a long-winded answer, but it's
No,
the
that
it's
is
the it's the road to SummerSlam 92, and how really the WWF generated enough popularity over here to be able to run that show, SummerSlam 92. So that's it really.
kind of forget that. I mean, SummerSlam 92, I've said many, many times, is my favorite event of all time. And I thought I was almost in a minority when I was growing up with that because, people would talk about all these other events and that. But I think as a Brit, we do take there's a sense of pride. The
Yeah,
fact that
definitely.
we made it so big, so accessible for them to shift because it wasn't meant to be here. It was
Yeah.
meant to be in America, and then they decided that, they changed tack, and all of a sudden we've been able to be the only other country apart from Canada which got one of the big events over here. And yeah, I think you've summed it up quite nicely there by saying it's the nerdy detail, because someone like me at my
Yeah.
age now, that is what I'm really interested in, because I lived through this. To put a bit of context, my own experience with it, I became a fan around about September 91. Um, Family influence into that. My older cousin was big into it for a couple of years before that, and then I stumbled across it, and it became my thing. It was what my entire childhood was about. So what I love about your book is, like you said there, it's not just the tours, what happened on the tours, it's all these other things that I didn't expect. It's the sticker albums, the action figures, all the pop culture stuff. All of a sudden, it joined, as a fan who lived through that, it joined all these dots to be like, I was actually part of something quite special going on. And I just took it for granted that it was just there. And I just happened to be there at the
Yeah.
same time. It's like I was, we were all kind of living through it. And I never put any of these parts together to think how important all of these elements were to the growth of WWF over here.
Mm.
So that is, yeah, I mean, the fact that you have managed to speak to some of these guys, the obvious question then for the guys like, from Silver Vision and Merlin and that, when you had the idea to write this, I mean, what steps did you have to take then in order to, did you just start writing it for yourself and then it kind of expanded through there, or did someone come along who was interested in taking it on and helped you kind of get in touch with these people? How did you find them?
To be completely honest, no, I didn't have any help. I was just winging it completely for quite a while. To be honest, it was only when I got toward the end I felt like I kind of knew what I was doing. Um, um, so yeah, there's kind of a few questions in one there. But yeah, in terms of, I did just start writing it. And it's funny, before, I know you mentioned about the amount of research that had gone in. I
Mm,
actually spent a long time, a very long, a frightening amount of time researching and writing stuff that never even ended up in the book.
right.
Because
Okay.
I was starting with a blank canvas, and I didn't have any sort of plan or structure at the start. It was
Yeah.
just, right, I've got this idea, I'm just going to start doing it, and I'm just going to see where it leads. And I didn't even know if I was ever going to finish it. It was just that kind of,
Yeah.
let's just keep going with it. Contacted a couple of people. Some were easier to get hold of than others. That's a story in itself. Some of the things I had to do to track down some people, um, but yeah. So I spent quite a lot of time, because there is a chapter in there about the national expansion, but I went down too many rabbit holes, and I
Right.
realized I'd written about 30,000 words just on WWF in the US and British wrestling.
Got
So it
you.
was kind of like, so I'd written about, a third of the book, and I hadn't even got to what really the book was about. It was all just
Right.
background. So, but yeah, I probably spent about 15 hours researching pay-per-view buy rates in the 80s and things like that. And then I just thought, what am I doing here? I've got it all saved. It might come in handy for something
You
one
never
day.
know. Supplement,
Um,
special edition. I don't
yeah,
know.
so in answer to your question, yeah, I was just kind of winging it, and then I think the very first person I spoke to was Finn Martin, who of
Yeah.
course was the editor
Power
of
slam.
Power Slam magazine. Um, so I thought if you're going to write a book about wrestling over here, he was kind of one of the first people that came to mind, really, as someone who's covered it for so many years.
Yeah.
Um, so I'd spoken to him at length. I was completely winging it, but managed to have a good chat with him. Um, and then yeah, it was some of the other people, though, because it was such a long time ago, and some of these gentlemen are quite senior now, I suppose is a nice way of saying it.
Yeah.
Off grid, really. These people in the book, a couple of people I spoke to, they're not really on social media or anything like
No.
that. So there were some handwritten letters tracking people down, and
Old school.
yeah, there was a lot of old school stuff. But I did study journalism at uni years ago, just never did anything with it.
Yeah.
So I did have some, I can't just pretend that I just decided to write something one day. I have got a degree in journalism.
Uh,
I've just done nothing with it for a very long time. Um, and then yeah, and actually working sales jobs over the years,
Mm.
you get quite good at tracking people down because
Wow.
that's kind of your job, really. You
Yeah,
have to,
yeah,
find decision makers in companies and all
yeah.
the people a receptionist try and stop you speaking to. So I pulled out. There's a few different skills really that I've acquired over the years that came together really. Um, but yeah, so it was some of the interviews I'm really pleased that I got because they are people that don't really. You'll struggle to find interviews that they've done online anywhere. So yeah,
I
it's
was going to say, their reaction, were they surprised when you approached them? Because I mean, I would imagine some of these guys, if they've been quiet about this stuff for so long, they may like to talk about it. It may be, maybe novel to them, or
yeah, it's different reactions really. I mean, um, one person was a little bit hesitant, and I found out later it's because they'd been stung before by
okay,
someone, perhaps not contacting them for information and not acting with a lot of integrity found later
yeah,
on. So there was one person that was quite hesitant. I got a whole list of questions to answer. I answered them all, and he came back and agreed to speak to me.
okay,
Um, yeah, and then another person interviewed has just wrestling has been out of their life for a long time.
mm.
Don't even think about it, but agreed to speak to me right away. And Gabe was very
Oh,
generous with their
amazing,
time. So yeah, it was a bit of a mixed bag really. And then, but the guys from Merlin they've actually done. They were involved in a book and a TV documentary, but that was mainly focused on the football stickers.
yeah,
There was a tiny bit about wrestling in it.
okay,
So I knew they'd be quite open to doing it because they've been through this process.
yeah.
I've read that book actually. I think it's called, the documentary is called Stuck on You. The book
I
might
may
be
have
called
to
that.
try that down. The
I
Premier
can't
League
remember.
albums were a massive part of my childhood as well. If it wasn't wrestling, it was
Yeah,
those. So, they're responsible
yeah,
for keeping me occupied for a lot of my years. So,
exactly. Yeah, but that's what everyone really, because that was a lot more mainstream again. Even though wrestling was mainstream, that was more. So people remember him for that really. So the
yeah,
documentary, it was kind of I don't know, 3 minutes maybe was WWF, but I
okay,
knew there was a lot more within that story, really.
mm,
So I knew that one was, that was probably one of the easier ones because it was just kind of like an extension of what they've already done. It was like that
yeah,
bit in the
yeah.
documentary. I want to go
Expand
back
on.
in and I don't want to know any of the football stuff. I just want to focus in on
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
wrestling stuff. But yeah, there's only a couple of people in the process that I never managed to speak to. Really, most people are quite, and I think it just comes down to your approach as well. I think
yeah.
if you're honest with people and they can tell that you're genuine,
Mm,
they'll usually give you the time of day if you approach people in the right way.
yeah.
But yeah, it
Okay.
was fun. And I'm hoping now that so I've had some really good feedback actually from one of the contributors, the one actually that was very skeptical because he'd had a bad experience, has sent me a
Sure.
really nice email.
That's cool.
So I'm hoping stuff like that now will make other things easier in the future. Now I've got kind
Yeah.
of some character references and people to say, yeah, he's not
Yeah.
gonna stitch you up because that was kind of my message to everyone really that, I know that, a lot of things written about wrestling, they do like to dwell on kind of the controversy and the
Yeah.
negativity and scandal and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just really stressing to people that this is a celebration of the era. So I'm not
Ex-
kind of looking for anything. And there's a few things people told me, and they didn't say it off the record. That
Right.
probably some people might have thought, well, that's going to get a nice clickbait headline or
Yeah.
something. But
Yeah.
I didn't even give it the
It's
time of
not
day because it's
relevant.
not.
You don't.
It's not, but it's bad. I wanted this to celebrate all the really good stuff and not just get a you
Yeah.
know, cheap viral clip that someone's slagged someone off about something. It's just not.
Yeah.
It's
You've
not my
got this
style.
scoop. No, that's not. And I think that's what's really refreshing about this because I have, in recent years, I've delved into a lot of these books out there that kind of tell, not like it is the business side of things, but it's what goes on behind the scenes. It's everything. A bit like you've done. It's all of these stories coming together to paint the bigger picture. I've quite enjoyed those, but you're right, it is bogged down in all of the same stuff, especially around this era with the steroid trials and all this, that, and the other. And you don't want
I'm
to
not
keep.
knocking that, by the way, because
No, no, no. But
I
you,
love Dark Side of the Ring. There is a place
yeah.
for that. It's
I
just
was.
it's not my thing, but
That is
I do
it.
like watching it.
Yeah. So that was their purpose. That's the kind of, if
Yeah,
you're writing about that, that's absolutely brilliant. But you don't have to dwell on that. That's what I found really
yeah,
refreshing about your book is you mention stuff, but you kind of move past that and you keep on track to what we're
Yeah,
actually talking about. And that's one of the things that's really kept me interested in this. It just keeps going. And
yeah,
there is no detail that I've come across so far that really kind of stops that momentum. And you almost feel that
definitely.
excitement again, that obviously
Yeah.
the buzz that was kind of going on back then.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you very much. But yeah,
st
no, that was definitely my aim because I mean there's a couple of things you have to
yeah,
mention. You can't ignore the steroid trial. It
no,
was,
of course you can't. No,
but at the same time, it's been analyzed and dissected, and
yeah,
that's just not the place for it here. It's as you say, I had to mention it, but it's not something I want to make a big point
no,
of really because it's not the story of the steroid trial. This
no,
is the story of because at the time over here, well, I was oblivious to the steroid trial. Most people probably
right,
were. It was
exactly.
so for us, it wasn't a big deal because we just didn't know about it.
No.
Really.
Staying with you for a second. Sort of writing wise, I'm doing this all over the shop. Normally, I kind of start with these kind of things, but
I'm always all over the shop, don't worry.
that's good. Sort of writing wise, is this the first project, first book like this that you've worked on, or have you had other things that have kind of built up to this?
Yeah, I mean, I've been planning to get back into writing for such a long time. It'd almost become a bit of a joke, really. But it was never going to be anything about wrestling. I've always wanted to write fiction, a novel,
Okay,
and
yeah,
I've quite a few times I've written sort of page one and then never got never
yeah.
got any
I
further.
feel your pain there. I've got
Um,
plenty of those. Yeah,
so no, this was the first time I've ever attempted anything of this length. I think probably when I did a dissertation about 20 years ago is probably the last time I did anything, and that wasn't even 10% of what I've written
so I
here.
say normally like
Yeah,
10,000 words. I think my dissertation was, and that seemed huge at the
yeah.
time. So,
I
yeah,
think really the key was because of I've kind of written it. Well, I've tried to. So I have. You can other people can be the judge of that. But I wanted it to be a book where um, kind of parts of it, or even I suppose you could argue all of it, but they could be read almost as standalone articles. Some of it. So
mm,
it's told in a linear way, but for example, Chapter 5 WWF magazine, I think you can just go in and read that by
yeah,
itself
yeah,
and it would still make sense really, even if you haven't read chapters 1 to 4.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I wanted to make it quite easy to read. And not because the thing is when you're going through kind of match results and rosters and things like that, it can get a bit heavy on
yeah,
which is why I started taking like when I was doing all that pay-per-view buy stuff and all, I was just getting
yeah,
bogged down in facts and stats and so yeah, the aim was to make it kind of an easy read that you could
yeah.
just pick up and down, read a chapter on the toilet or whatever,
Yeah,
That was the
and
aim.
I, that's what I was going to say. I was thinking I could describe this as an easy read, but I'm not saying that it is. It lacks intellect and it's or anything like that. It's just the fact that you just want to keep reading, because so like I say, during this time, I was a new fan. All this was going on. It was all really exciting. I was there. My mum worked at newsagents, which was fantastic because I
Well, there
got
you go. The
the new
dream.
yeah the new copy of the magazine the day it came in. She plied me with the trading cards, the stickers, and all of that. She had played a massive part in wrestling becoming as big as it was for me. Um, where were you at this time? I think we're on similar timelines in terms of age and when we got into it by what I've read in the book so far.
Yeah.
Um, your fandom with wrestling, let's kind of just touch on that for a minute. Where did it start for you, and where were you during this period that you're writing about?
Yeah, well, I mean, you'd have been my best mate in school if you had access to a news agent. I'd have been, I'd have been hanging around you for that one.
I
Yeah,
was the only wrestling fan I knew as well, which was, I
I
was in
thought
one of
there would have
those where it would have been
been.
lovely to know someone else, but I was
Yeah,
almost wanted to gatekeep it for myself because it was this new thing for me.
yeah. I thought there
But
would
no,
have
it
been
would
up
have been
all
nice
over
to have
you with
someone else.
that. It's funny because I'm a little bit hazy on it, but a huge part of it was definitely my granddad's newspapers,
Okay.
and it's probably quite difficult for people that didn't live through it or don't remember it to kind of comprehend it. But WWE now it's making more money than it's ever made, and it's bigger
Yeah.
than it's ever been, and it's got all these multi-billion-pound streaming deals and everything. But in this era, it was in your daily newspaper, and
Yeah.
I'm not just talking about an advert here and there. There would be full page, double page spreads kind of written in kayfabe and reports. There was a WrestleMania 7 report in I can't remember which newspaper it is in the book. But there's just a double page spread report on WrestleMania in the
Yeah,
daily newspaper.
yeah,
It's just it had that level of penetration that's just you don't get today, even with the multi-billion pound deals
yeah,
going on now. It's not in people's lives in the same way that it was then. And newspapers were a far bigger deal in the early 90s than they were now.
yeah,
Millions of people are picking these up every day.
yeah,
And you open it up, and inside there's World Wrestling Federation stuff, and entire like a full page spread about Bret Hart, written in interview in kayfabe, just and that's a newspaper. So, but my parents, they never had national newspapers. They only bought the
yeah.
local newspaper.
Mm,
But my granddad had the Daily Mirror delivered, and I used to be sent there every Saturday.
mm.
I'm not actually sure where that was, but every Saturday I was sent to my grandparents' house.
Same here.
Um,
It's almost like we live the same life. This
yeah.
is really, really
But
sweet.
I've never really questioned it properly. But yeah, it was without fail. I was sent there on a Saturday. I never saw my parents on a Saturday ever.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so I'd go through his newspaper, and they'd keep informing me if there's anything in the wall chats and things were going on. Then my nan would start
Yeah, some of
making
the
sure that
things.
they hadn't got. So really, it was newspapers was a really big thing for me. That's where I was seeing a lot of stuff.
Mm,
The magazine was another really big thing.
yeah,
I think, I know, I'd say 99.9% certain that I'd read magazines before I'd ever seen any wrestling on TV,
yeah,
World Wrestling Federation.
yeah,
And the toys as well, walking into, going to Woolworths was a big thing. Again, on a Saturday, I was with my grandparents, we were stopping Woolworths after we'd been to Quick Save and that kind of stuff. And you couldn't miss it really. The Hulk Hogan figure on the
I
peg
know.
there.
Yeah,
Ultimate Warrior, you see that stuff, and so it was kind of a mix. I don't know what my first memory is. Um, but I know it was a combination really, but it was even without the internet. It's strange. It was harder to miss it in non-internet times. It was in the
yeah,
shops, it was in the newspapers, all these things that were far more important in our lives back then. They were in all these places.
yeah.
And then I had a friend from school that was a bit more well off than we were.
Uh,
So had Sky TV,
yeah,
had the newest games consoles, had like every Hasbro figure and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and going after school there, then I get access to all this other stuff, and it was just and then he'd tape the shows for me.
yeah.
Um, like the one that always sticks in my head is WrestleMania 9 because I think I watched it about 3 times before I gave him the tape back.
Right.
2 days later or whatever. That's when I was really into it.
That gets
WrestleMania.
slated. It's one of my favorites
Oh, it's my
because it
favorite.
takes me
My favorite
right back.
WrestleMania. I
Yeah.
think. I think that one and when Cody won the belt. That's
Okay.
probably the
Yeah.
one I've enjoyed most as an adult.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as a kid, WrestleMania 9 was the one. So
Yeah.
I remember that getting that tape definitely. I've got other memories of the tapes like the Diesel Royal Rumble. It was that 94 when he
94, where he sort of steamrolled through a load of
But
people.
yeah, see,
Yeah.
I really remember having that tape. It's weird. I've just got these little bits
Yeah.
here and there, all these little memories. But we didn't get Sky until I think it was 94, wasn't it? That is in the book.
Yeah. That's what you
It
reference.
was when
Night.
Robbie. It was around the time Robbie Fowler scored that really fast hat trick for Liverpool. That's how I remember when we got Sky. So I didn't have it for all of these peak years.
Yeah.
So I'd just have things like the pin brooches, the magazines. I'd have all this other stuff. So I'd be surrounded by all this stuff. I just couldn't watch it until I got those
No.
tapes or I went to my friend's house or whatever. But yeah,
The
it
excitement I used to find when when the new magazine was there,
yeah,
because the front cover, there's a few in particular where it's almost like you just saw the front cover and you knew something big had happened, because WrestleMania 9 was one of those with Hogan, that shot of Hogan on his knees holding the belt
yeah,
up. I
that
was
was a
like,
good
what
one.
the hell is going on here? When Diesel won the belt as well, and he's on the front of the magazine in 95, things like that. So the magazine,
Yeah,
exactly like you've said in the book was for you, the magazines are with a link for those of us who didn't have
yeah,
Sky. I was exactly the same. I had my dad's friends, a couple of them ended up, even my mum's boss at some point taped me WrestleMania 8 along with a load of like the prime time shows during
yeah,
that week or 2 weeks. WrestleMania 9 happened. Am I right in thinking that was like April the 4th? I think it was like my dad's birthday is April the 4th. Mine is a
Sounds
week
about right.
later, which was Easter Sunday that year in '93. So I got home from a camping trip on my birthday, Easter eggs everywhere, but it was also my birthday, so I had the WrestleMania single, and my mum handed me a taped copy of WrestleMania 9 that
There you go.
someone had taped for me, and that was it. My day was made, and that's I
Yeah.
think why I always go back to that one. It's so
Yeah.
it's cool. It is cool.
Yeah, those tapes, even like, yeah, if like when you mentioned about prime time, if you got a tape with an episode of Superstars on, that was jackpot. It didn't
Insight
matter that
one.
it was all just squash matches and all this stuff,
No,
just anything you could get your hands on was
yeah,
amazing. And it's like now I kind of struggle to watch it because like even that Vault channel, it's absolutely amazing. It's full of amazing stuff.
yeah.
But I struggle to ever watch anything like because there's too much choice.
I
I'd rather
know.
just be given one tape, like this is
Yeah,
what you're
and
getting to
watch
see
it to
this week,
death.
and just
Yeah.
like it's there was something quite special about that, really. Yeah.
I remember one 94. My mum's friend taped me an episode of Raw,
Mm.
um, and it was the one. Was it Raw or Mania? I think, but they had the match in there. The 1-2-3 Kid beat Nikolai Volkov for
Would have
the
been Mania, I think, because Mania had the Raw highlights that
yeah.
you
So
didn't
it
get
must have been
Raw
Mania.
for a couple of years.
Problem is, she
Yeah.
she recorded it on that really weird setting, which is like double time.
Yeah.
So I basically
Yeah.
had to sit there and I watched an episode of Mania where I couldn't really tell what they were going on about because it sounded like chipmunks, but I just had to basically I
Yeah.
was able to catch up with what had happened. King of the Ring had just happened, and I didn't know what happened there. And there was highlights from that. It blew my mind. Just having these little drops of being exposed to these things that hadn't even come out in the magazine yet, and I didn't know what the hell was going on. But
Yeah.
there is too much choice, too much access to it.
Yeah, it's
But
just it gets a bit overwhelming, but yeah, then you
yeah,
just had that, you waited a month for your magazine, you grab whatever bits and clips you could.
yeah,
It was, but yeah, it's amazing because I've managed to speak to Keith Elliott Greenberg actually about some of those feud features in the magazine. So there's a few quotes from Keith in there, and but yeah, it blows his mind that we all still love the magazine as much over
yeah,
here, but he understands that for us, because we didn't well, the majority of us didn't have access to all the programming.
mm,
The magazine was where you found out why two people were in a feud sometimes.
yeah,
Um, and he says he told me there's a guy that's constantly like sending pictures of like of some of his articles from magazines and stuff. And just said, I never thought all these years later people would still be reading this stuff again. Like, it's but so I think he's quite proud really
that's
of
good.
what he managed to do. But I told him, you're performing an important service for us because we needed someone to fill in the gaps for us.
Yeah,
I might only see one episode of Superstars in four or something like that. So
yeah,
I needed that magazine to really yeah, fill in those gaps and explain to me
yeah,
actually why Bossman and Mountie are feuding or whatever it was.
yeah. Exactly that. And when I got Sky 95, and it really did felt overwhelming to begin with because it's like, oh my God, I am now landing in it, and there's all this stuff I've got to catch up on because I'm 2 or 3 months behind in terms of what the magazine was telling me. It was just like 95 was one of those years as well where everyone seemed to be turning the other way.
Yeah.
I think I watched I've referenced it on the show before, I think, where I watched an episode of Superstars or something up at my aunt and uncle's house. They had Sky and they used to run Superstars like early in the morning. And all of a sudden, Bam Bam Bigelow's a good guy. Men on the Mission are bad guys. It's like Shawn Michaels is a good guy. It's like what has happened here?
Yeah. I quite
But
like that though. I
I
like this
do,
just
yeah,
like this confusion and like flicking
yeah.
stuff on. It's like, have I missed something earlier? Because now it's just everything's just spoiled and it's like
They
everything.
are,
And
and
I quite like that. Just yeah, thinking like you've missed out on something and you really have missed out on it, and then you've got
yeah.
to work out what's going on. Yeah, there's far too much information. Trying to avoid spoilers now is just I
Well, you
managed
can't do
it
it.
for WrestleMania this year because I was away visiting some family.
Mm,
And I was getting back on Sunday night, so I was going to watch the Saturday night um, on delay, and then that would finish just in time for me to watch the Sunday Night Live. Right,
yeah, yeah,
I regretted this after it was too much wrestling one night. I did it, but avoiding the spoilers of night one of WrestleMania, I literally had to just switch my phone off
Yeah,
entirely
I was gonna
and
say that's all
just
you can do. Yeah,
keep away from everyone because it's yeah, it is
but
impossible. Even if you know you're not looking for it, something will you'll get some
yeah,
notification or even an email from like the Euro shop will come through saying the new champion T-shirt is
yeah,
on offer.
exactly. Not even they don't even, and they don't have to keep things under wraps anymore. You know, I mean, I suppose
No.
back in that day before the internet, you could get away with being 1 or 2 months
Oh,
behind with the magazine because no one, unless they're watching it, no
yeah.
one knows.
Couple of
Um,
months, you get away with stuff for a month or two, no problem. Yeah, it
yeah,
was
now to try and get away with it for a day is just impossible. There was one thing that I actually read in the book this afternoon, actually, and I had to note it down because there's one sentence in there which really resonated with me. Um, it's going to sound a bit of an odd one, probably, but bear with. And where you said in there, we remember the things we owned because physical media opened a rich sensory experience.
Hmm.
I am a nostalgia nut, right? And I really do.
You
I
know
am,
what I mean then.
yeah, I am trapped in my past, in my childhood. I will go to certain periods 92, 93, 94, sorry, 95, 96. They've all got these weird, reasons for me to go back there. But I love collecting the old stuff. My missus does not understand why I will spend money on videotapes that I can't play because I've not got a VCR anymore. CDs when I've got Spotify and it's all on there.
Yeah.
I have always said to her, I've joked to her, I'm preparing for a digital apocalypse, is what I call it. Because I'm like, when all of these services go, I want to be able to still watch and listen to these things. So I need the physical. I love to have the physical side. That line there in the book really does encapsulate that because it's like back then, in these days that you're talking about, sort of 89 to 93 and that's all we had.
Mm,
And I think there is a real connection for people of our age because this is all we had, and that's what meant so much to us and what gave us those experiences.
mm.
Comparing that to now, what would you say? Is the industry lacking that? Is the younger generation missing out in terms of, not having physical media to fall back on, or is it just a sign of the times that it's kind of moved where it needed to?
Oh, I mean, it's a tough question. I mean, there's definitely positives and negatives. I
Mm,
mean, having a kid, there are some great positives to having all these streaming
yeah,
services.
true.
I will
Yes.
say so. And it is it is great to be able to just type something in the search bar and look it up if you really want to just see it that second. There is,
Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend that I don't do any of that stuff and I reject all these modern things.
Mm,
But yeah, I think there is kind of because all this stuff now it exists, but it doesn't really exist because
yeah.
it's not there around us.
No.
It's all hidden away. When you had a video shelf in your living room with those tapes that your family owned,
Hmm.
and we can all remember what those tapes were and those films that we watched over and over and over again because
Yeah.
they were in our front rooms. We were looking at them every single day, and we
Yeah.
had that connection. We can remember what the inside of the cover looked like, all this kind of stuff. So I just think we connected to the media our relationship with it was completely different.
Mm,
And when you are just streaming stuff, and it's so easy to just flick something off after 5 minutes or skip to something else or change
mm,
mind. Yeah, it's quite hard. And then you get in this vicious cycle where the people that are making all these things, that are making films, making TV, they have
mm.
to react to that and do things that are going to keep people's attention for more than 3 minutes because they're thinking, well,
Yeah.
actually, minute seven, a lot of our people, a lot of people watch this might have switched off by now because we haven't done enough
Yeah.
of this. So you
Yeah.
get in this vicious cycle now of people now having to react and make things to
Yeah.
fit this new way of life. So yeah, it's
I
so
don't like
tough.
it.
I don't want to be old man shouting at clouds about it
No,
because like I say, it's great when you've got a kid and
yeah.
you know, what sort of film do you want to watch? You can get anything or just name a film. I will find it on one of the services. But there
Yeah.
are benefits. But yeah, I think we're gonna see it go round. It happened with vinyl. It
Yes.
started to
Yeah.
happen with DVD. I mean, when you mentioned that, the kind of the digital apocalypse,
Mm,
when the network went, people started to panic and people were buying DVDs again.
yeah.
Um, because there was a point on Amazon where the WWE DVDs, the last Fremantle ones, they were going for absolute peanuts. You could pick them up brand
Right.
new, sealed, 2, 3 quid, pay-per-views and things like that. As soon as
Yeah.
the network went, you could see people were panicking. Are these going to end up on Netflix? Oh, and
Yeah.
then people going online and buying DVDs again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's always that potential for that to happen.
All they got to do is switch off the Vault YouTube channel for people
Just
like us who'd
a
like to get
deal
back there,
ends. Yeah, they just
and
someone makes
use
a
the,
decision and it's gone.
yeah,
It can
lose the
happen.
Netflix deal, or they just decide to call time on it or whatever. All this stuff
Yeah.
goes, and this is why when I'm just so reminded, and it's this year when I've got back into collecting this stuff. Started with the figures because I swore blind to my missus. I was like, "There's one collection that I want to do. Always wanted to achieve the entire WCW Galoob
No.
collection. It's fairly achievable, except for a couple of quite pricey ones. Um, and I can't show it on here, but it is just it's exploded, and I'm basically delving into now, particularly this the called the Rampage era, the Hasbro era. I hear it called a few different things. I'm loving going back into this, collecting this stuff that was around that you're writing about in your book, because it just takes me back to those days when you would just sit there and you would look through this stuff,
Yeah.
and that is what that kept you happy. You
Mm.
didn't need to be searching every 2 minutes for something new on the screen.
Yeah.
And should the entire digital world go, I want to be able to pick something up
Yeah.
and still
I think,
enjoy it, and
yeah.
yeah.
I think, yeah, I think some of the stuff, I, I think well, I mean, it happened with vinyl, people started, wanting a piece of that back again. And I think,
Yeah,
certain, people of kind of our generation might start searching for that within other things as well.
yeah.
People, though, that have never lived through kind of physical media eras probably won't because they've never had that connection in
No,
the first place.
no.
But certainly, I think people, yeah, that have had videotapes, magazines, things like
Yeah,
that, I think
yeah,
they will start looking to try and get a piece of that back, just like they did with vinyl again when that
yeah.
eventually, and yeah, I mean, look at vinyl now; it's
I know,
they
and,
sell
and
more than CDs now.
there are artists there now releasing new music on vinyl, and that says everything
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
need to say,
absolutely.
really.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Oh, I can never get this right. Right there on that shelf, you won't be able to see it very well, but that is, I got that the other day. That is a copy of WrestleMania for the Amiga. And again, something else you mentioned in your book
Yeah,
is the video games.
nice.
Can
Oh,
you
that terrible,
imagine me
terrible
trying?
game.
Yeah, I never played it because I never had these consoles, but I saw that for sale, and I'm like, again, this physical media stuff, and I was like, you know what,
Yeah,
that looks phenomenal as a piece. I need it. Can you imagine me trying to over the weekend when I showed my son, my 11-year-old, and trying to explain to him what a floppy disk was?
yeah,
Because that's something, two floppy disks. Again, why has he got two? And
yeah. The
it's the
tape
world's a different
game.
place.
Yeah, the cassette games over the loading time. I mean,
Yeah,
trying to explain to someone that you've got to put a cassette in, let it run for 20 minutes, turn it over, wait another 20 minutes, and then
yeah,
you can play level one of the game.
yeah.
Yeah,
Done
no,
my
it's
head in
stuff. But
there.
that game, yeah, I've got a love-hate relationship. I mean, it was the Amstrad that I had it for, but
Okay.
yeah, I mean, seeing the box, that brings back so many
Yeah.
memories. Like it does make me feel like quite nostalgic. But then,
Yeah.
yeah, if I think too hard about the game itself, I just think yeah, the hours,
Sometimes all
the
the effort went
hours.
in the box art. I think that'd be one of
Yeah,
those things.
but yeah, I would quite like to get a nice copy of the Amstrad one if I ever see one. But again, these market stalls everywhere with these Amstrad
Yeah.
games on cassettes and things. It was yeah,
I
great
was,
time.
I think you mentioned their DVDs and that, and when I was reading your chapter about Silvervision, I didn't even go off in my head the impact the DVD had on
Yeah.
company like them, because I mean they were there and they were selling videotapes hand over fist, but then DVD came along. Things progressed, and all of a sudden it's not needed anymore. Did they not? They didn't go into that market. I take it DVDs.
No, they did. Yeah, they managed because I mean, it almost. I think. I mean, they took a massive financial hit, and it was almost the end of them. But yeah, they did. Silvervision kept on with DVDs for a number of
Okay.
years,
I thought they
um,
were. I thought
and
I saw
then
they'd
still
been touching it.
the fires and the riots and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that was
And
it. Yeah.
yeah, then basically because Fremantle, I think they've been sniffing around it for a long time, and then as soon as Silvervision, because of the riots and the damage to the warehouses, they just couldn't fulfill orders, and it was Christmas
No.
period. WWE had the kind of the
Yeah,
reason to go with a
with
competitor at
us.
that point. But yeah, they did move to DVD, but I know that was a very tough time for them
Mm,
with a warehouse full of videotapes and everyone now wants DVDs. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, again, there's something else that you just having a video. And I used to go into Woolworths and pester my mum, £15 to throw on the fly. Can I have that one there? I there's a time it still sticks in my head. I was in Woolworths. Survivor Series '96 was out. I'd already seen it because I'd watched it. We had Sky back then, but then I saw it. It was out. I had to have it. FOMO kicking in. And I really turned it on and almost gave my mum a real guilt trip, and she bought it for me. And my sister gave me hell when my mum went to pay for it, and all of a sudden my mood changed. And that was the one time I was called out for, and yeah, I mean,
Mm,
that's what my mum did, bless her.
yeah.
I've got a couple of particular questions I wanted to run by you before we kind of get to a point that we need to wrap anything up, because I probably could carry on all night, to be fair. It's so good being able to talk to someone who has the appreciation of exactly the same era, exactly the same things. It's just such a shame we were so far apart geographically at that point. Um, so you mentioned it towards the beginning about the boom that was happening during these Rampage years over here in the UK. Things were really taking off. It was one of the most popular things out there. But back in America,
Mm.
WWF started to struggle. Why was that? In your research and that, did anything
Yeah.
point towards it, or why was it so big over here but not so over there?
I mean, there were a number of reasons, really. I mean, it kind of, I mean, it had been so big there in the 80s, kind of the Hogan on the cover of Sports Illustrated era and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And then they'd built up to the mega powers exploding, which was, which is still probably now, one of the best wrestling storylines there's ever been. It's
Mm.
such a long term.
Yeah.
It's built across a couple of WrestleManias.
Mm.
Um, and you didn't have all those shows in between as well. So you had the gaps in between the longer build. It was able to breathe,
Yeah.
and it really peaked without the mega powers exploding. Hulkamania had just been off the charts. So that was coming to its end really by the time it came over here. I mean, by the time Sky TV launched here, satellite TV,
Mm.
not the Sky Channel on cable. So kind of 89, Hulkamania had really peaked in the US.
Mm.
And then they went through obviously trying to move it over to Warrior, which didn't quite pan out the way it wanted
No.
to. But then we had other things going on now that they entered a recession in the United States. I'm not sure if that was 90 or 91, but the kind of the climate was changing a bit. Everything
Mm.
had been kind of great in the 80s and then things weren't quite as good for people generally. So, you could maybe point out people maybe aren't buying as many tickets and many
Yeah.
pay-per-views for $30 and etc. Could have been a reason. I think the end of Hulkamania was a big reason. Obviously, he was still around after that, but
Mm.
really, the night he dropped the belt to Warrior, it was Hulkamania was never the same after that.
No.
Um,
No.
then you had the Gulf War controversy, which was again, like we were kind of oblivious to it here because I'm
Yeah.
6 years old. You don't really understand what the Gulf War is,
No.
and you see in Sergeant Slaughter talking about Saddam Hussein, it doesn't really make a lot of
No.
sense to you if you're six
Yeah.
or seven, and they didn't get the press backlash here because the press, like I say, the tabloids were printing all the kayfabe stuff, but you weren't going to
Yeah.
get, the Daily Mail writing about Vince McMahon upsetting people about the Gulf War. So
No.
that kind of stuff to get, but over in America, like if you go back and look at Wrestling Observers, when that Gulf War controversy hit, I mean, people were going absolutely berserk over it. I mean, the
Mm.
reader letters in the Observer, there's people demanding Vince McMahon's, in front of a judge.
Oh.
Um, the newspapers were printing that he was, kind of making money on soldiers' blood, and it was just,
Yeah.
it was getting like brutal over there. So that went down really badly. But he wouldn't drop the ankle. He kind of
No.
watered it down a little bit, but yeah, so so that didn't help, number
No.
one. Then they went into obviously the steroid and all the other scandals that were going on. And yeah, it was just kind of one thing after another, really. So yeah, it was really a combination of all these different things.
Mm.
But things at the same time though, I think 91, 92, they were actually doing some of their best stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
people were just switching off in the States. But people were getting into it here. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think kind of if you take the Gulf War angle out of 91, um, most what they were doing was pretty good. There's loads of good
Yeah.
stuff in there.
And whether they'd just been overexposed over there, they'd had it for that
Then
long that it just
yeah,
kind of just lost its momentum. But it was new over here, I
yeah.
suppose,
There would have been an element of that, especially when
Yeah.
you think how big WrestleMania 3 was,
Mm.
and then you managed to after that still build that huge storyline with Savage and
Mm.
Hogan 2 years later, and you're not they're breaking pay-per-view records and all that sort of stuff. There is everything's got its
Yeah.
lifespan really, and there will have been an element of they've kind of outperformed what they should have ever done. So it
Yeah.
is always going to kind of come back again a little bit. But yeah, it's really it wasn't one thing, but certainly yeah, the replacing Hogan thing definitely didn't quite work out either way
No.
because he wanted that megastar and obviously Warrior wasn't it. Then the next plan was for Sid to be the man.
Yeah.
That didn't work out either. Um, so yeah, I
Just couldn't
think
seem to come away from. I mean, the thing is, though, he couldn't seem to come away from Hogan. He always sort of had him in the background. Looking back on it, when I got into it, it was Hogan or the Warrior. Me and my cousin, we were into wrestling for about a year or so at the same time. At Christmas and birthdays, he got all the Warrior stuff, and I was really, really annoyed because I wanted all that, but I got all the Hogan stuff. I got the old
yeah,
man basically, whereas he got like the superhero.
yeah,
But I think for looking back on it now as an adult, the fans had really started to almost turn on. They got sick of Hulkamania. They wanted something different.
yeah.
Um,
It kind of run its course. It's funny though because we didn't experience the peak of Hulkamania here really.
no,
Other than the kind of tiny fraction of the UK that had cable
hmm,
and could see those early WrestleManias. Um, so by the time WWF properly arrived here, Hulkamania had already peaked, but it's funny, he was still the reason why so many of us got into it, even though
hmm,
he was kind of in the background really as it was really taking
yeah,
off here. So it's funny, he's still my earliest memories are still around Hulk Hogan, even though yeah, we never got to see
no,
the peak of Hulkamania here. So
no,
it just shows really the impact that he had, that he was still, and even when he was in WCW,
hmm,
um, you could still buy WWF, easy for me to say, Hulk Hogan merchandise over here, even though he was in a
yeah,
different country now in the States. It was
yeah.
just like he
He was
was
everywhere.
wrestling, wasn't he? So
Yeah.
it was funny. You'd still be buying kids party tablecloths and things with Hulk Hogan on them in '93, and he'd been in WCW for a few months. Yeah,
It was my
strange thing. The
first.
Hulk Hogan UK thing, it's quite strange because all the timelines are all over the place, but he was still,
He's still
the
massive,
most
wasn't he?
famous
He was
guy.
still
Really.
riding the wave. He was my first everything, really. He was on the cover of my first magazine. He was on the packet, obviously, of the trading cards when I started getting them. He was my first figure. He was my first VHS, pretty
Yeah.
much. I wasn't his biggest fan, but he was. Yeah, I mean, you can't deny that he is the one that really, especially back then, hooked everyone in. Um, it would be remiss of me not to mention the British Bulldog, obviously.
Yes. Oh yeah, we've
While we're
been
here,
mentioned once, have we? Yeah. Yeah.
um, so he was obviously a very big part of the Rampage tours. He pretty much did. He was on all the shows. I don't think he lost a match by the looks of it on any of those. He was obviously a big
Yeah.
attraction, even if he wasn't at the top of the card.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, really, what your thoughts were on Davies' rise during this time when he returned in the WWF through to SummerSlam '92. Was his rise a benefit from the UK boom, or was he part of the reason why the WWF was so popular over here?
Um, it's a good question. I don't think he was the reason for it initially
Mm,
at all, because as I say, the Hulk Hogan, even though we hadn't seen those prime years, that Hasbro figure, kids that didn't watch wrestling or didn't know what it was had a Hulk Hogan Hasbro because
yeah,
it was on the peg in Woolworths where everyone went. You
yeah,
couldn't. you couldn't avoid it. Ultimate Warrior as well.
Mm,
So many people. I mean, I was one of them. I've spoken to so many other people that just said, when they saw the Ultimate Warrior, it what you were looking at a real life superhero. It was just
yeah.
what the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
Like, this is amazing. And like it, and I can remember having, I think I had like a key ring or something, and I'd never seen him wrestle, but
No.
you just saw him,
Yeah.
and you're like, I want to know what this is. I need to. I'm like, this is what I'm into now. I don't,
Yeah.
I've just from seeing the face paint, and there's a picture. It must have been 92 looking at the haircut, but there's like a picture of him and he's got his arms like that with the face paint. And
Yeah.
I saw someone reposting it recently and I just thought, yeah, I remember seeing that picture as a kid, just being like,
Yeah.
so I don't think so. Bulldog, he wasn't the reason why it became so big here, but as part of that wave, then as it really started to gain momentum,
Mm,
91, Rampage tour in April was a huge success,
mm,
which obviously he was a part of. Then the Albert Hall show, which they kind of built around him and having a couple
yeah.
of matches and winning the Samovar Trophy. So then I think they realized it was becoming so big here anyway,
Yeah.
with or without the Bulldog. It just kind of made sense for them really then
Yeah.
um to make a point of really featuring him on these tours. But certainly
Yeah.
by 92 though, I mean he did become a national celebrity and
Mm,
I didn't I didn't quite realize until I was going through old newspapers some of the stuff that he was doing, like the signings and things like that. A few times he would do when they were over here, he'd go to do signings at HMVs and Blockbuster
mm,
Video and Woolworths. He did a few, and some of the pictures from these. I mean, he managed to find some of these old newspaper clippings. Actually, sent some of them to his daughter,
okay.
and she'd never seen them before, which was understandable because these were from local newspapers. They weren't from
Okay.
the
Yeah.
national ones. But the queues, in town centres and just
Mm,
stretching on and on for miles. It's supposed to be a 2 hour meet and greet, and there's a 6 hour queue to see it. It's just,
yeah.
and there were quotes from like store managers and people saying, we've never seen anything like this in the
Mm,
um so and he'd be doing all this stuff, and you look back on it and you could be looking at, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a modern equivalent, One Direction or something like,
yeah.
you know,
Right. Yeah.
look at, or the Spice Girls in the 90s, or
Yeah.
when these things were going on, these like in-store appearances, it's like looking at those and when I look back and I thought he was actually bigger than even I remembered.
Yeah.
He was real pop culture
Yeah.
icon in this country in 92. And yeah, when you go back and you look at these old newspapers that I dug up, you think, wow, like he actually
Mm,
was. And people in at the talking, I've traveled from Exeter all the way to Birmingham this morning just to get a Silver
yeah.
Vision video signed and all this. And it's like, yeah, he was an absolute
He was.
megastar. So yeah, it wasn't the reason at the start, but certainly by the time we got to 92, he was one of the driving
Yeah.
forces of it. Absolutely, yeah.
Right place, right time for him. But he probably just helped power that
Yeah,
while it was going on. It's brilliant.
yeah.
But I got one little fun thing to finish off with, and I didn't prime you for this, so it might be a little bit putting you on the spot, really. But
Oh, right.
this period of time that you've written about, something the Rampage era, if we'll call it
Mm.
that. Five, if you were to pick out five of your favorite things from that era, be they
Yeah.
matches, moments, merchandise, pay-per-views, anything, what the if you could pick out five things that really stick there as your kind of favorite memories.
Just any five things. So I think, yes, number one would have to be, these are no particular order, by
No,
the
no,
way.
no, that's fine because it's unfair of me to just land this on you anyway at the end. But
So, so I think there's a couple of Hasbro figures I'm going to put in there. So the Hogan Bear Hug
mm,
and Warrior Press Slam.
yeah,
Um, yeah,
they're
those are
my
just
first two figures. I had them got them the same
they
Christmas.
they were among my
Yeah,
first. Yeah, definitely. Although I think my first was actually Big Boss Man,
okay,
but they weren't far behind. So I think
yeah,
those figures. I mean, when you just look at them, or when I look at them now,
mm,
I'm just transported straight back to those
yeah,
times. So I need to really get some. minty ones of those really because
For
they're
old
just
times.
I've got a nice one of those where I've got a really battered Hogan and a nice-ish Warrior, but
Yeah.
I think I should really invest in those because they're really good. Um,
An investment as well.
the definitely the Merlin it was actually trading cards I was more into the gold
Okay.
series that were around for
They were the
Once Upon
SummerSlam
A
ones, weren't
Turnbuckle.
they?
Yeah,
Love those, yeah.
yeah. Again, that was a Daily Mirror thing through my granddad. It was, collect your tokens this week, get a free pack. They
Okay.
knew what they were doing.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
It just shows how big that was a TV advert as well. If we're talking about how they penetrated the culture, the Daily Mirror ran a TV advert
Mm,
on ITV to say buy the Daily Mirror and get tokens for free WWF trading cards. This is how big it was.
great.
It's unreal.
Yeah,
So it was, as far as I'm concerned, it was actually not in terms of not financially, but
no.
it was bigger in terms of its presence
Yeah.
here at the time.
Other companies benefiting off of it,
Yeah,
other publications.
so definitely those other things. I think the Albert Hall show, just in its
Yeah,
entirety. I mean, I'm not saying it's the greatest show of all time, containing the greatest matches, but in terms of its look, I mean, if you show someone a photograph from that
yeah.
show, it's that show straight away.
Yeah, absolutely. It's iconic.
Um,
I was at a gig at the Albert Hall a few years ago, and it was the one thing I
okay.
thought when I was in there. I was like, this is where that happened. It was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because funny, I shared them on Instagram. Someone sent me some photographs someone had taken in the audience from it.
Oh, wow.
And as soon as I saw the first photo, I knew which show they were from.
Yeah, yeah.
Which just says to me how people use the word iconic about a lot of things, but I think that
Yeah,
show is.
exactly.
And yeah, so developers of the next WWE game, you need to get the Albert Hall
You
in there,
do. That would be cool.
all that on like a little retro. Imagine having that and be able to
Yeah,
set great stuff.
that'd be amazing.
Um, so that's three other things from that era. Um, the pin brooches, weirdly,
Yeah,
which
no,
I don't have any of these now.
I forgot about these until
Really,
recently when I have seen them pop up and I thought,
yeah.
oh, I would love some of those.
Again,
Yeah,
they were just really they just summed up everything to me about this era. They were cartoonish.
yeah,
Um, they weren't. It wasn't realistic artwork. It was done in that kind of WrestleFest cartoon
yes,
style.
yeah,
And I remember being on holiday in Wales, and they'd have just like in souvenir shops, you'd be able to just walk out and get WWF these pin
yeah.
brooches again, they were just wherever you went, you'd be able to pick up something WWF related. So yeah, those pin brooches, that's another thing I keep looking on eBay and thinking, oh, I might just start getting a few of those again.
There's
Um,
one I've seen that I wanted. I missed out on it twice, but I was a massive Kona Crush fan.
yeah,
In
I had
'92.
that one. Yeah,
Did
'cause
you? Yeah,
I did. I did love Crush. He just had the look, didn't he?
yeah.
That was it.
And it was those trading cards that you mentioned that put me onto him first because his look, and it was one of
Yeah,
those that I saw in the purple and the yellow outfit, and I was like, whoa,
yeah, that
he's
was it. He just,
yeah,
I loved him. He just had that. He
yeah,
had the right look. When you were a
yeah,
kid, that was it. Then that's all
yeah,
you cared about, really, didn't you? You weren't
yeah.
bothered about much else.
No,
The theme tunes, what they used to wear, that's
and
it.
his was the
Same
best as
thing.
well. Of that, I absolutely loved that.
Yeah. Um, and finally, I think, yeah, I've just mentioned it, but yeah, WrestleFest, I think the arcade game.
Okay, yeah,
Just again, that just reminds me of summer holidays, being in Wales or day trips to Blackpool, and yeah, always being in the arcades. And when you saw
mm,
that, well, there you go, that's all you needed. And
yeah,
yeah, and the game, the Superstars game, they released the predecessor as well. That was really
yeah.
good. I love that one. It wasn't as good as WrestleFest, but I did. But yeah, those arcade machines. Again, it's summer holidays. So, see, it's all this stuff. It was just
Yeah,
no matter what you're doing in life, you'd come across it, and it just
it's
that's
everywhere.
why we remember it so much because it was in all these different places, whether you're in
Yeah,
a souvenir shop or reading the newspaper or in an arcade. It was just it was all around you
you
really.
don't get that now. Yes, it's on Netflix. Yes, it's in
Yeah,
toy shops. That's pretty much it's the main thing, main places that you expect to find it. It doesn't really pop up
yeah,
randomly anymore. There's a
yeah,
couple of notable mentions there. I'm glad you didn't mention them because I wanted to kind of bring these up, and just as a reminder to us and the people watching this, really, Slam Jam. I have got
Oh my
such
God.
good memories of those
How I've
singles.
forgotten the album.
I I ordered that last night on eBay. I've been watching it for a while, and I was reading your
Yeah,
book, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to buy it because I
yeah.
used to have it. But Slam Jam, the single, I don't know why. Again, it was 1992 for me. That epitomized that sound. And at that time, did you remember the crisps they brought out?
Yes, that they're mentioned in the book actually.
Are
Yeah,
they? I haven't got to those yet. Right,
I
yeah,
haven't got to,
because
haven't got to the crisps yet. Yes, I do because they again that had a TV advert.
yeah,
Um, there was a TV advert for World Wrestling Federation crisps by Red
yeah,
Mill, the Undertaker spicy beef. It was
there's
the
Macho Man.
Macho Man cheese flavor, Bret Hart pickled onion. That was
That's
it.
it. Yeah, it was just
Yeah,
random.
yeah.
But see, my mum in the news
Because well, you
extras.
don't associate Bret Hart with pickled onion crisps,
Well, I
the
didn't.
link is obvious.
But obviously, my mum, where she worked, used to get the magazine. I got the trading cards. She used to get the crisps when they were in the bubble gum as well, with those stickers in.
Dunkin' bubblegum, yeah.
Just
See some crazy eBay listings for those empty wrappers. Like just people selling them for hundreds. It's like it's empty. It's an empty bubble gum wrapper.
yeah.
Come on,
I was watching a Vinted listing, and it was all this, not all of them maybe, but it was
stickers.
the stickers, and I missed out on those
Yeah,
as well. And I need to just start getting this stuff before other people do.
yeah.
Um, Lee, this has been absolutely amazing as I thought it would do.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you. No,
I've enjoyed having a chat about it all. Yeah,
oh,
thank you for
I
having
could,
me on. I appreciate it.
if there was an opportunity, we could just have a chat at some point. We don't even need to record it. I would be stoked with that. But congratulations again. I'll just flash it up again for
Thank
the
you so much.
guys out there who are watching this. If you listened to it, Rampage by Lee Herbert. You need to go and get it. Lee, I'm going to give you the floor for a couple of minutes, mate. Just basically in the best possible way, in the greatest possible taste, sell yourself. Um, where can people find you on social media? Where can they order your book? Anything else that you want to promote that you have coming up, if anything else aside from this?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so the best place to get all the details is social media really. There's still it's still appearing basically there's still stuff going on, but the ebook has just gone on Amazon. If you really like say after we've just been talking about physical media, I didn't want to do an ebook,
The
but
physical
I've been
it's
talked
cool.
into it.
You want the physical one.
I was anti ebook, but a couple of
Yeah.
people have it, so that is on
Ah,
Amazon now. But yeah, to buy the actual book, the best thing to do is just find me on social media. So on Instagram, it's WWF Rampage Book, all one word. I'm on Facebook as well. I think it's just Rampage Book. I think it's quite hard to find a good username on Facebook. They're a bit
yeah,
funny
no.
there. I am on X as well now. I've just started a page. It's I couldn't get the name I wanted on that obviously because I'm a bit late. So
Uh,
it's Lee Herbert Words on X. But yeah, there's links on there. It's just a Shopify shop at the minute. So you order the book. Not I wouldn't say direct because I don't post them, but it's pretty direct. So yeah, it's a Shopify link on there on the social media. And anything else I'm going to promote? I don't think so at the moment, really. Just hope
just
everyone enjoys that, and I hope people do enjoy it because I've already started a follow up.
have you really?
So
Uh,
I hope people enjoy it.
Amazing. Can't wait for that.
Before I get too far in the next one, but yeah, I appreciate everyone that's bought a copy so far, and yeah, one thing actually I am going to ask people to do.
Go on.
Even if you buy the paperback and if you do enjoy it, leave a review on the Amazon ebook because that would
Okay.
just help because
Yeah.
the book probably will go on Amazon eventually, even though I won't get as much money from it. But yeah, the reviews they're all linked together eventually when it does appear on there. So yeah, it's really handy at this moment in time being kind of an independent author for people to leave
I'm
reviews. So yeah,
completely
you
champion
buy
that,
the
mate.
paperback and you like it, go on Amazon, just leave a review on the ebook on there. That will be a
There you go.
great help.
There you go. Brilliant.
That's
Lee,
it now. I'm not going to ask for anything else.
don't worry. No, no, I'm with you. I'm completely, being one myself. The importance of reviews, and I think people do
Yeah,
overlook those a little bit.
'cause there's so
Um,
much stuff out there and just it's needle in a haystack. And if you can
yeah,
get a few
uh,
nice reviews and things, it does help with visibility and everything else.
we're always quick to leave a review for things we don't enjoy, and I think
Yes.
it really needs to flip. And for books in
Yeah.
particular, yeah, absolutely. I'll be doing exactly that when I finish it.
Yeah.
Lee, congratulations again. All the best with this. I cannot
Thank you
wait
so
to
much.
see what comes of this and what what you
Yeah.
eventually what you are now working on. I'll be very intrigued to see more on that.
Appreciate it.
You're
Thank you for
welcome
having me
back at
on. It's been a
no
pleasure.
anytime. If you just ever want to come back on, just literally
Yeah,
talk shop. We'll pick a subject or something. There's a space
very
for you,
good.
mate. So anyway, all the best.
Amazing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks very much. Appreciate
Take
it.
care, mate. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, share, and hit the subscribe button. Also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Once Upon a Turnbuckle to keep updated about all future shows.